Someone has taken a young man, hung him in a tree. Who would do something this hideous?
Michael Donald was an innocent Good Samaritan, not a thug.
The crime scene is the same block where this group of Klan lived. What better place to start?
The Mobile Police Department just didn't want to believe that Mobile would still have Klan in it, but they did.
We felt the cops and the Klan working hand in hand. We don't tolerate this.
Thomas figures he's in a position to push and nudge and make sure that this case does not rest from a criminal standpoint.
I stuck to the Klansmen. The more I asked questions, the more they talked.
And Tiger Knowles finally cracked.
And he names Henry Hayes. Gotcha. Got him, man. Got him.
So when we think about Michael Donald, how long will it take for his family to get justice? How many years? How many decades? How much time?
The body of a black man has been found hanging from a tree in Mobile, Alabama.
Lynching is a tool to control and oppress black people.
Racialized violence is as old as the Constitution.
Klans are not running around with white sheets over their head, but it's still happening.
Today, people are horrified of the police. It's the modern day lynching.
What are we going to do about it?
We move forward with people deciding, I'm bold enough, and I'm gonna make it change.
Beulah May Donald took on one of the most violent criminal organizations in the United States.
This is an incredible story of courage. When Beulah May Donald discovers that her son has been hung, strangled, and beaten, she seeks to hold the killers of her child accountable. The stakes are high, but the only way to get justice is to pursue the killers in criminal court.
I don't know all the negotiations that were involved. I trusted the lawyer who sold me out. And I ended up giving a plea deal. It was a hard decision. There were threats in my life. Everybody hated me. Everybody hated me.
At that point, we reached an agreement with Jeff Sessions. And the agreement was, since Tiger had incriminated Henry Hayes, Tiger would be allowed to plead guilty to a civil rights violation in the federal system and was to have been sentenced to a life term. And then we would try Henry in state court for capital murder.
Promises were made to Tiger Knowles for his cooperation, and he knew that he was a dead man in state prison. If he got convicted in state court of anything and he went to prison in the state of Alabama, it was done for him.
I'm not a psychologist, but it's my opinion Henry murdered Michael Donald to please his father.
Tiger Knowles and Hayes were the products of the people and the organization they're associated with. They wanted to please Ben and Jack Hayes, and they wanted to make him understand that they would do whatever it takes to further the Klan. It seemed to me that Ben and Jack Hayes had control over whatever they did. He could have said, look, I don't want you to go out and do anything. I don't think they would have gone out. They did it with his blessing.
Benny Hayes was a tyrant, and Henry was deathly afraid of him. But Henry always tried to please his father, and it just never seemed to be good enough.
Get off me, son of a bitch! Get it off!
Mr. Hayes probably told him, oh, we can do this and nothing will be done to us. I just really believe, because typically in the South, white people think they can do things and nothing will be done to them. And I think he convinced him, if you do this, oh, they'll never find out that you've done it. Most people that do crimes, they feel like they will never get caught.
In the history of the state of Alabama, only one white man had ever been sentenced to death for the murder of a black person. most critical factor was to create faith in the black community that local law enforcement had both the will and the skill to prosecute a white man for murdering a black man. If we were successful, would demonstrate that the life of a black person mattered as much as the life of a white person. So this is Black Lives Matter in 1983.
When you look at Michael Donald and the fact that his mother, Beulah Mae Donald, had to essentially say Michael Donald's life mattered. He was black and his life mattered.
Justice for Trayvon! Justice for Trayvon! Justice for Trayvon!
The moral anthem, the political cry, Black Lives Matter, came into being in the wake of Trayvon Martin's death. When it came to Emmett Till, back in 1955, on behalf of a 14-year-old boy, Mamie Till had to say his black life mattered. In the case of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombings, for decades, on behalf of 4 little girls and a 5th girl who was maimed, we were literally saying, black girls' lives matter.
In the early 80s, there was not a sense of security that history would not repeat itself. We'd seen the Klan numerous times get away with lynchings, get away with brazen acts of violence against blacks to which there were no consequences. No one was ultimately held accountable.
Henry Hayes is the Klansman who is charged with killing Michael Donald, then hanging the black youth's body from a tree near downtown Mobile 2.5 years ago.
He was arrested, and per the agreement, he was turned over to Chris Galanos. He wanted a capital murder conviction. He wanted Henry Hayes to get the electric chair.
In order to get a capital murder conviction, we're going to need Tiger Knowles to show just how vicious this was.
Tiger was put in a prison out on the West Coast under concealed name and so forth. So Chris and I flew out there.
In October of 1983, we interviewed Tiger together, and I was forceful but not abusive. I was very direct, and I was painfully candid. I was the one that told him, in that cell, you got an agreement with the federal government, but if you fail to tell the whole truth, it does not preclude prosecution by the state. If successful, will put you in the electric chair. And sport, you ain't told me the whole truth. I was the one that told him, in that cell, today is the day, and it is your call. You can either tell it all, or I'm going to present your case to a grand jury when I get back to Alabama. I just could not fathom why somebody would kill and hang someone from a tree. The motive for the murder of Michael Donald was not known until Tiger made the connection between the Anderson trial and the killing of Michael Donald.
Josephus Anderson on trial in Mobile during the week of March 15th through 20th, 1981.
On Monday, the 16th, the trial of Josephus Anderson started in the Mobile County Courthouse.
Anderson was accused of killing a white police officer in Birmingham. His trial was moved to Mobile because of the publicity the case received in Birmingham.
The composition of the jury is 11 black people and 1 white person. So it was a topic of educated speculation, shall we say, that Mr. Anderson would either be acquitted or the case would result in a mistrial.
The Joseph Anderson trial started the week before Michael was, killed. And I watched the trial the whole week.
The fifth day of the trial, the case went to the jury. That evening, all of these people congregated on Herndon Avenue and waited to see what the 10 o'clock news was going to report.
The 12 jurors couldn't reach agreement according to the foreman. Judge Joseph Hocklander said he was forced to declare a mistrial in the 5-day-old case.
The news came on and we was watching, and I saw him coming out the courtroom. I got up from the TV and got dressed and went to my sister's house. So we talked about it for a little while. We talked about it and then it was over. Never thought we would be affected by that.
On Wednesday night, the local Clavern met on the property of Benny Hayes, who at that time was the second-ranking Klansman in the state of Alabama. At that Klan meeting, they discussed what they thought would be the outcome of the trial. And Benny Hayes made a statement to the effect that if a black person, and he used another word, could get away with killing a white cop, then we ought to be able to get away with killing a black person. Again, using another term. So Henry and Tiger left the apartment on Herndon Avenue looking for a black person to kill and to lynch solely because the Klan wanted to, quote, send a message.
Well, there was fear the black community would start increasing its vote, legislatures would change in the South, and possibly throughout the country. And the hierarchy of the Klan viewed it as maybe a spark that started a fire that couldn't be put out.
What we see in American history again and again is this ugly convergence and correlation between black ascendancy and retribution and revenge at the hands of white supremacy. We saw it in the wake of the Civil War and Reconstruction. We saw it in the 1920s with the resurrection of the Klan and fears over immigration. We saw it again on the eve of the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. What we have seen is what Cornell Belcher called blacklash.
This racialized violence always seems to occur at a moment where perhaps Black America has made an advancement of some kind. And the racialized violence reminds Black America of its place in this nation.
Benny Hayes' motive was basically to cover his backside and to attempt to protect his son.
Henry's father, Klan leader Benny Hayes, has denied it all and asserts that his son has been framed by the communists.
Because the communists don't pick, only if you're in their way. Right now, I'm in their way. I'm the one they're picking on. To get to me, they got my son.
How could a Klansman living on a rundown farm in a rural part of Mobile County come up with the money to hire one of the best defense attorneys around?
When these two Klansmen were identified as killers, the old man, Benny Jack Hayes, he hired a Klansman to burn his house down so he could hire a prominent attorney to defend his son in the state trial.
He did burn the house. He got an insurance settlement. He used that to pay the lawyer for his son, Henry Hayes.
Benny Jack Hayes raised enough money to hire one of the best criminal lawyers, M.A. Bubba Marsaul.
The defense was to attempt to discredit Tiger because Mr. Marsaul argued that Tiger had cut his deal to save his life and therefore would say anything that he was told to say.
It was sometime before lunch. One of the trial coordinators came to me and said, Chris is going to have to leave the case.
Mobile County District Attorney Chris Galanos has been suspended. That came from Montgomery Circuit Judge William Gordon, who will preside over the DA's DUI trial. Assistant DA Tom Harrison is taking over for a while.
Chris is going to leave immediately. He will have no contact with the office, nothing. And you're going to have to try the Michael Donald case. Whoa.
I have been told that the next grand jury to convene in Mobile County will consider the issue of whether or not to impeach me.
Galanos believes that grand jury will be impaneled December 5th. December 5th also is the date when the capital murder trial of Henry Hayes is scheduled to begin. 2 workdays after Galanos' DUI trial is scheduled to begin.
I went to rehab. I mean, it's not something I'm proud of, but that's what happened.
Chris had been charged with driving under the influence. Chris is going to leave immediately, and he's going to go into some kind of rehab, and you're going to have to try the Michael Donald case. I knew his case was going on, but I didn't have any idea what was going on in his case. Then they told me that in this case, we really need to be careful. And I said, why? I'm going to try the case like whatever. What do you mean be careful? They said, well, we've heard some rumors. I said, what are the rumors? Well, if you convict, the Klan is going to riot. I said, oh, okay. And if you don't convict, the black community, they're going to riot. I said, oh, no. So they were concerned about me, and they made me drive home in a different car every day and go a different route and all that.
If prosecutors and law enforcement were afraid, if they wanted to take a different route home every day in order to ensure their safety, what about Beulah Mae Donald? As a resident of public housing, could she change her address? Could she take a different car home? Could she assign security staff to herself? She demonstrated more courage than most people I've seen in my life.
Do you believe in your struggle to the point where you would literally lose your life? Because guess what? It's just that dangerous. It's just that dangerous when I open up my mail and someone sends to my home mail that tells me they're gonna kill me, or tweets at me that you deserve to be dead, you stupid bitch, and tweets my address. You're putting your life in danger just by speaking up for truth and justice.
When a black woman has the temerity to take on any white assailant, any white person who deigns to take the life of a black person, particularly in the Deep South, Beulah Mae Donald's life, the life of her family, her community is at risk. She had every reason to be afraid. There was an empirical, historical basis for absolute terror.
Guys in the community would just come and sit in front of my mom's door. So I think they call themselves protecting the house and protecting her, because the Klan was still around in Mobile.
I thought one of the best ways to really catch up on exactly what had happened that night, I had the chief investigator, Bob Eddy, and we got with the FBI and we got Tiger Knowles. We started out at Herndon Avenue, and I said, okay, we're going to ride the route that you did, the best you remember, because I want to know what happened.
Tommy had to do that. He needed to know what Tiger was going to say and how he was going to say it. They had U.S. Marshals with them. They had an obligation to make sure that there was no likelihood of any kind of escape.
Benny Hayes told me that I was getting too heavy involved in the Klan, and I was getting to where I know too much. If anything ever happened and I wind up being a fall guy, he took his hand and done like that, said your pockets will be padded with money. You'll never have to work ever again. But if you ever open your mouth about the Klan, you were gonna die.
We get up to the trial Tuesday morning. You went into the courtroom, the Klan in this part, and then you had all of the NAACP all over there.
To imagine a criminal court in the 80s in Mobile, Alabama, where you have a jury box with 11 jurors who are white and 1 juror who's black, of white defendants being held accountable for the death of Michael Donald. The stakes could not be higher. The racial tensions could not be higher. The nation is literally watching. Everyone had to have a sense of this being a historical aberration. Black people do not get to hold white people accountable for the death of black lives. A criminal trial for folks who are card-carrying members of the Klan. You'd have a reason to be afraid, a reason to be concerned, and particularly when the text and the subtext of the trial is white supremacy and American racism.
Today it was a tense one at the courthouse. A bomb threat was phoned in, and a prosecution witness says Hayes' father threatened to kill him.
He said if I ever opened my mouth about anything, that I would be dead within 8 hours, 24 hours at the most.
Well, I was really scared. I moved out of my mother and father's house because when I started testifying, Benny Hayes came to my mom and daddy's house looking for me to shut my mouth to keep me from talking. So when my mother and father went to the store to buy groceries, I wrote them a note saying I moved out. I couldn't live here no more. And I started staying at the Salvation Army in Pritchard. I honestly believe that they would have killed my mom and daddy.
29-year-old Henry Hayes looked chipper as his capital murder trial got underway. Security is very tight at the trial, where in his opening argument, Acting District Attorney Tom Harrison charged that Hayes and 20-year-old James Tiger Knowles went out looking for a black man and found Michael Donald.
I put Tiger Knowles on the stand, and we went through, who he is. Did he know Henry Hayes, and how did he know him? Just ask him what happened that night.
As soon as he leaned over into the car to give us directions, I put a pistol in his face and made him get in the car. Then he started begging for his life.
The body of the young black man was found hanging lynch-style from a small tree on a residential street in Mobile, Alabama. That was more than 2 years ago. Today, a courtroom heard that killing was the work of the Ku Klux Klan.
Mrs. Donald did not attend the trial because I think that it would have been too painful. She lost a child, and to have to relive that would be devastating to any parent.
Consider what Beulah May Donald was going through while trying to secure justice for Michael Donald while grieving his death. Consider what Gwen Carr is going through now in the wake of Eric Garner's death. Consider all the mothers behind the hashtags who had children we understand to be human beings.
Our child, they died one time. The mother, the father, the family, we die a little every day. What happened to George Floyd brought back so vividly of how my son was killed. There are so many mothers and fathers whose child has been murdered and no one ever heard about them. They are the nameless and they are the faceless, but their pain is the same. When the trial started, I didn't go to the trials. I never went to any of the trials because at that point, I don't know what was going on with my body, but I had gotten so little. And the doctor said what I was doing was not eating. And I think what it was, I didn't want anything to eat, but I had got so small. My mom was worried about me. She said, "Are you all right?" Because I dropped so much weight in so little time.
Our top story, the Henry Hayes trial. Hayes admits that he's a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Now he's being tried on charges of capital murder, charges that could send him to the electric chair, convicted of killing a young black man, Michael Donald.
The 2 or 3 times that I paid any attention to Henry, he appeared to be scared to death, justifiably so, because the ship was sinking. Every witness I put on was another nail in his coffin.
When Tiger Knowles told the story, I think everybody was just so amazed, because if it hadn't been for him, we never would have known.
Testifying for the prosecution, James Tiger Knowles pointed at his fellow Ku Klux Klansman Henry Hayes and said that together they killed 19-year-old Michael Donald in March 1981 because he was black.
The Klan wanted the message to get back to the black people of not just Alabama, but the whole United States, that we would not stand for a black person killing a white police officer and getting away with it, especially in Alabama. We'd gotten the rope, and we got the gun, and then I tied the hangman's noose in Henry's car. We were out on a hunt. That's what we were doing. We were hunting. We were hunting black people.
Klansmen who said that they were out hunting black people and they came upon Michael Donald and killed him, they literally mean they were out hunting black people. Just go watch the tape of what happened to Ahmaud Arbery when they killed him on the streets in Georgia. Watch men who are not police officers, who have no authority, drive around and literally corner off this young man and then shoot him with a shotgun in his hand and his body.
Well, he was an easy target because he was walking by himself. And so that's the reason we chose him. And I called him over to the car for direction. I think it was for directions, I don't remember.
Henry pulled the car right against the curb, and I asked Mike where Black Nightclub was. And he went to give me directions to it, and I put the gun in his face and told him don't say anything.
I pulled the gun and told him to get in the car.
He got in the back seat, and I got in the back seat with him. The guy had no idea we was going to kill him.
We took him to Baldwin County.
I asked him if he had a girlfriend. He said, yeah. The last thing he said, as far as I can remember, was in the car when he said, please don't kill me. I'll do anything you want, just don't kill me.
When we got out of the car is when he attacked me and tried to get away.
It's like he just completely changed and went from a calm person to a mad dog, a raging animal.
When I think about Tiger Knowles describing Michael Donald fighting like a mad dog, I think about the fact that the killer is describing the victim is non-human. That says everything we need to know about hate crime. Tiger Knowles is so detached from his own humanity. He's lost sight of the fact that he's behaving in a beastly manner, in an animal-like manner, in an animalistic-like manner, that he's providing moral commentary on Michael Donald's behavior as someone desperately trying to fight for their life.
Michael was a strong person. He was a strong person. So he was just overpowered. He probably got tired, but he was a strong person, and I know that for a fact. He fought him. I knew he fought him. I knew he did.
He was hit way over 100 times, almost 200 times, at least 200 times, with a limb that was found.
And then we killed him.
And Henry went and got the rope and put the rope around his neck. Henry put his foot on Mike's head and was pulling on it to hold his head secure while we tightened the noose. Henry and I put him in the trunk of the car. Henry cut his throat.
And we took him back to Mobile and lynched him.
Just imagine that. A person was brutally beaten, their throat was cut, and then hung from a tree. My God, I mean, your heart just dropped. My heart just dropped. And then you're thinking about the family of that child, because he was 19 years old.
When Tiger Knowles described what he had done, he told us how he fought them, and they had got tired. Henry said, "We're not gonna let this nigger fight us like this and not kill him." And that's what happened.
They really played on this young man's courtesy to them. They asked this young man for directions to get somewhere. And he stopped what he was doing to try to show them where they needed to go in that community. He was brought up to respect people and try to help people where he could, and that's what he was doing. And they took advantage of that. And to me, that's as low as you can get. Some people would have just kept walking, but he wasn't brought up that way.
He was an easy target because he was walking by himself. And I had called him over to the car for direction. I think it was for directions, I don't remember. I pulled a gun and told him to get in the car.
When they first got Michael into the car, Tiger had held a gun on him and said, "Take everything out of your pocket." Well, in his pocket was his wallet that had a dollar bill in it.
The sister testified he had $1 when he left the house. And when we found him, that dollar was gone. That constituted, obviously, robbery. We could prove kidnapping. So those two, combined with his murder, made it capital murder.
Michael Donald is abducted, he's brutally beaten, strangled, and then post-mortem lynched. After all of that, lawyers have to ultimately hold one of the killers accountable for murder by legal acrobatics, where you have to essentially establish the theft of $1 in order to establish the theft of a life. There have been over 200 attempts over 100 years to pass federal anti-lynching legislation. Until this very day, we have not done so. Lynching is not a relic of a bygone era, but literally manifests and metastasizes in new forms of racial terrorism, literally as we speak and as we tweet.
Look what they did to George Floyd on the TV. Everybody can see it. Where's the remorse? They lynched him. That's what I call a lynching still, maybe a different tactic. Some 30 years later, and you go, this is still happening. A black life still has no value.
In this trial, the final jury was 11 whites and 1 black lady.
I certainly had some concerns about the makeup of the jury.
White people and black people see things differently. I mean, we showed black folks the film where the police was beating Rodney King, in LA, and we say police brutality. And white folks see that same film that was on that jury. He resisting arrest. Figure they can kill a black person. The all-white jury gonna find him not guilty. And that's been the practice over the years.
The admitted Klansman stood stone-faced as the verdict was read, but moments later turned ashen as the words guilty of capital murder sank in. There were gasps and muffled cries in the packed courtroom, not only from Hayes' family, but the family of Michael Donald as well. It took the jury 26 minutes to recommend life without parole. Judge Braxton Kittrell will sentence Hayes on January 19th.
The state of Alabama, the way the law works, is the jury gets to make the recommendation for sentencing in a capital crime. They can either recommend life without parole or they can recommend death. This particular jury for Henry Hayes recommended life without parole. However, a white judge in the mid-'80s in Mobile, Alabama, rejected that recommendation from the jury and instead sentenced him to death. It was the first time since at least the early 1900s, quite possibly longer, that a white had been sentenced to death for a crime committed against a black person in the state of Alabama.
As a young man who was born and raised in the South, I'm just proud to be in this chair on this day when a white man has been sentenced to die for murdering a black.
Nobody, not then, not today, 39 years later, ought to be, running a victory lap. The only conclusion you can reach is that everybody lost.
2 families was destroyed from the hatred that went on. It's just a sad situation. It was. 2 families were destroyed.
Benny Hayes obviously felt that he was so powerful that he was above the law. But in the end, he was brought to his knees and caused the death of his son.
You can't give life, so why take it? You kill an innocent person, that person stays with you day and night.
It seemed like a long time coming, but just the fact that it ended up coming it was like everybody was praising God and just thanking God and just really, really happy.
I think the jubilation was not so much that he received the death penalty, was that the life of a black man in 1984 was determined to have mattered to the extent that, what was said to apply to all, and the dignity and the respect and the right to life and liberty, the right not to be targeted for race and killed, that it was realized in that moment in that courtroom.
We were pleased with the arrest. We were more pleased with the outcome. When Mike was a young kid, 19, going to the store. Minding his own business, just going to the store.
It's extraordinarily unusual for any white person to be held accountable for taking the life of a black person. So, to the extent that you have a member of the Klan being given the death penalty for taking the life of a black person, it may not be moral progress, but it is a progress in terms of the recognition of black life. Beulah Mae Donald, in many ways, embodies, personifies the moral nuance, the complexity in the black community about the death penalty. She grieves over her son, but as a woman of faith, is opposed to the death penalty and has a forgiving heart. This is a moral calculus that can only be performed by someone who should be eligible for sainthood.
We were getting letters from all over the world. I mean, the postman would just get mad because we were getting like crates, 10 and 12 crates per day of mail from all around the world. All around the world.
Beulah Mae Donald, having endured the emotional rigors of a criminal trial, knew that she wasn't done. It wasn't enough to hold a few individuals accountable. She had to hold the whole United Klans of America accountable for the death of Michael. She wanted a victory through a civil trial on behalf of her child, her son, but also other children, on behalf of them and their mothers.
It was not enough to have a guilty verdict. She understood that there was something much more nefarious at play. And so she brought a civil suit against the Klan in Alabama. This was an opportunity to take down one of the longest standing white supremacist domestic terrorist organizations that existed in the nation. Think about this. This is a black woman who's just lost her son to lynching, finds the strength to move forward in a civil suit against the Klan in Alabama. It's almost unimaginable